Hello, welcome to Evolve with Natu. My name is Natu, and today I'm delighted to have a wonderful guest hailing all the way from Ottawa, my dear brother Muhuji. So just to give context, I've known Muhuji for at least, I'm tempted to say 12 years now, give or take.
Yeah.
We met through High Five, I think. And then I found out his older sister is actually a mutual friend of a friend of mine. And we had a lot in common to the point I consider him as my biological brother. So without further ado, Muhuji, thank you so much for gracing Evolve with Natu. Kindly tell the guests more about yourself.
Thank you, Natu. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. And welcome to Ottawa.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm a Tanzanian Canadian. So grew up in Tanzania. Did my primary school, secondary school, did my undergrad at the University of Dar es Salaam. I did computer science, and then I worked a little bit for Deloitte in Tanzania. I did IT audit. And then, it was time to move, time to, see what the world has to offer. And also, it was just easier to get to university in Canada. There's a story there. So moved to Canada. I did my master's in computer science at Carleton University here in Ottawa. I guess I'm one of those guys who, I came to Ottawa and that was it. I've been here ever since. Yeah, so, I'm a dad of two. I'm a husband. And I like to see myself as a community practitioner or a community leader. I like to get involved in community activities to whatever capacity, right? I think as you go through the different phases of lives, there's so much or so little time you can put into all these extra activities. So, but whenever I can, I really try to stay out there, to socialize, to help give back, to help build our communities here in Canada, in Tanzania, in however capacity.
That's great to hear. So switching up a little bit, you came to Canada,
right.
You did your master's in computer science.
Right.
So walk us through your journey from you getting your master's degree to your career, where you were, and where you are right now, that trajectory.
Okay, wow, you better,
brace yourself.
We are in for a journey, yes.
Yeah.
So on my second year of my master's, I was lucky to get an internship at the Bank of Canada, and that's kind of like how I broke into the Canadian professional world. Yeah. Now I've had jobs in Canada. I think anybody coming to Canada, when you come, you will get certain jobs, right? We may not put them on the resume. There's a reason for that.
There's a reason.
Yeah. But I'll tell you this: those jobs are very important. I highly respect those jobs because they taught me a lot of things that you don't learn in class.
Absolutely.
And it filled the gap between how we see jobs in Tanzania versus how you see jobs here. Right? See things like customer care, right? Like it's almost like a no-brainer here. Like you have to know, how to serve people. But it teaches you that the communications, the things around customer care. Anywho, back to professional track. So I got to intern at the Bank of Canada. It was great. I learned a lot. I was an IT technician there. I was also, I guess I must have been, good enough to be offered to, stay and continue.
Permanent position?
Yes. So became an IT specialist there. Did it for like a year where I was doing more of the BI, business intelligence developer. So building, enterprise reports and, analytics and all that. So it's somewhat, half coding, half, business language sort of. And then, I was able to kind of break into the cybersecurity team. There's a story there too, how I got to it, sort of in the professional industry. So I was a security engineer there for so in total I was there for like 5 years. So for like 4 years I was a security engineer. So I did learn a lot, covered a lot of domains of security. In security there's different sort of like sub-specializations. So that really, gave me a good understanding of that industry and the capabilities. And at that point I was like, okay, this is where I want to be, right? This is it.
You found your niche.
I kind of bet into cybersecurity at the time. That was back, I think I joined in 2011, 2012. security was a big thing, but not today big, right? So, I had folks who joined security and left because they're like, yeah, it's great, but I was like,
it
no,
wasn't as exciting.
Yes, I stuck around. I'm like, no, this is it, guys. It's gonna
you had a hunch.
Yes.
There's something in there.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think there's also another backstory of me as to why I had to move out of there. But it's like I felt like I did everything. I was given opportunities to learn, opportunities to do stuff, but I felt like I needed to do more.
Okay.
Right. I felt like it got to a point where I felt like I've hit the ceiling of that desk and the table that was given, and I was trying to evaluate options. How can I move further? Right.
Okay.
And to stay within cybersecurity, not to leave, because some people give in and say, hey, I want to stay at company X, and so if the only option to grow up is to tangent into another path, I'll do it. I was like, no, I want to stay in cybersecurity, right? So if I cannot get any options to grow within that space, and it was tough because remember, that company took me when I was literally a student, not well integrated immigrant, right? It's like there's all these things that we're still balancing out. So to have a government institution like that take you in, it almost became like there's this bond that you have.
You feel indebted in some ways.
Yes.
Okay.
So there was a bit of a couple of emotional roller coasters living, and there were times where you get two different groups of friends or support system that tells you leave it. Some's like, no, don't, because it is actually a pretty awesome place to work in Canada. It's considered one of the top places to work.
One of the prestigious places.
Yeah, so it's like, well, you go to the top place that others are fighting to get, and then you say you're done, you want to go. It's like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, maybe, I don't know, but I'm willing to
venture out and take risks.
Yes. So, I contemplated and made a decision. I said, okay, I need to grow more, and maybe I need to fail. That'll be part of the lesson too. If I go out and fail, good thing is if you've made good relationships, you can always come back, right?
Absolutely.
So I moved to a consulting company, CGI, which I think is pretty big in Canada and the US.
Actually, I think we also have CGI. Well, we have it when I used to live in New Brunswick. It was a pretty big firm.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a Canadian firm, and it's really trying to get to the ranks in the US too.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's also big in Europe too, because I had customers in Europe too.
Okay.
So I did some good, close to 2 years of consulting with them. Still in cybersecurity, I was a senior consultant, helping customers with their security analytics and operations. So really building their SOC, security operations centers, and building their security maturity, pretty much. So that really opened my eye into this is great. It's like I felt I was I knew everything. I felt I finished everything. And then you're put into this place where now it's like, oh, look, you only had one, sort of like one river to swim on, and you mastered, every waterfall, everything, right? You can swim with your eyes closed. Or you come here, it's like, well, it's a delta, right? It's like it's a big river, and then it has all these many rivers that it's only one of it that you mastered from your previous job.
Oh, wow.
So it really opened my eyes. It's like, okay, well, the confidence and competence that we have in our jobs every day is really like a box.
You're confined.
Yeah, so you get comfortable in that box, and then you think that's everything, but it's not. You're taken outside that box, taken to another place. It's like, it's a big box. Now you have room to grow, right?
Yeah, it's a whole new world for you to explore.
Yeah, so that really gave me the drive to say, okay, Muhuji, you can push, you can become better. I thought I was, at some point at the bank, I was like, hey, this is pretty.
This is the best of the
best. Got a good pension. Just need to do 25 years and
25 more years and you're out.
Yeah, but this is like no. It's like no. The change of perspective. It's not about just working. It's also about you need to show impact, which I was showing impact there. You also need to have fun, and you also need to learn.
You also have to grow.
Yeah.
I think that's the key message that I'm getting here. That with you venturing to CGI, there was that
Yes.
trajectory? There's that growth in your career.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, worked in some exciting projects, met awesome people, and the good thing with that company, you make contacts in Europe, North America. It's like anywhere where we had customers, if you're good with people and networking, you make contact. And that really grew my network, right? And then you kind of start seeing the power of network. Right? It's like that's where you see it's like, oh wow. So with LinkedIn you easily see the connections and how easily you can say, okay, if I want to reach out to someone, you go to that person, you see probably have a mutual connection. That's when they told me, okay, so we've been focusing, I've been focusing more on becoming, sharpening my technical skills, right? But there's this aspect of network,
that's soft skills.
Yes, soft skills, and just getting to know people. That is actually a very powerful, vehicle that one can use, right? I can even say if you're good with that, sometimes you don't even need the technology. You can fake it until you make it, right?
And I think some people in the world, that's how they've ascended to higher positions, leveraging their social networks, their professional networks.
Yeah.
So
CJ was great. Taught me a lot of business, acumens, right? How to conduct, big projects. These are not. These are like the budgets are a bit more heavier. So you feel like, okay, I'm actually being part of a team that is gonna deliver X, right? That's you feel like, okay, it's a heavy responsibility. At the same time, it's actually good that I'm doing this, and then it pushes you to learn a couple of other things that were not in your day-to-day, things to do. But it was great. But I'm like, okay, now I need to. How do I package this into the next level of me? Right? This is great. I'm doing a lot, but how can I sell this? At the end of the day, you have to show. Like you can do a lot in your company. If you're not able to show what you did, well, it's kind of like the transferable skills, right? So,
yeah.
How are you gonna say that you're good at X if you can't show how you did it, right?
Exactly.
So in our sort of IT industry, at that point, what I was doing was within the architect role. So I was like, okay, this is great. I've become an engineer, become a senior engineer, which I was doing consulting. But how do I now take the leap into an architect? Which at the time, being a security architect was a big deal, and everybody was striving to become one. So I'm like, I'm literally already doing it. I just don't have the title.
Yeah, you just don't have the title, and you haven't been able to, as you said, package it, which I think is something most of us struggle with.
Yes.
Being able to put those skills together and sell them to the next employer, the next position in your company. So how did you do it?
Yeah. So the only way to do it, the way I knew how to do it, is to, find an architect position and obviously interview for it. And then as you interview for it, you will be able to show, and now the bet was that I'll be able to sell this, and then once I get it, then I can have the title, and now really practice it, and there will be definitely areas where I'll fall short. You start improving on it, right? Because exactly. The rule of thumb is you don't want to go to a job that you can do everything. No,
you're not learning.
You need to go to a job that you can do maybe 60 or 50%, and then the other, well, that's an area for you to grow. Anyway, I managed to do that, and I actually managed to now break into a tech company here in Ottawa. So I become an architect. Security architect, did a lot of cool stuff, and I loved it, because then it's like, okay, now I really kind of it's almost like I was dreaming of becoming something, and now I became that. So I'm like, this is great.
You manifested it.
I manifested, yes. That company was awesome. I did great, but again, there's a curse in me, right? There's something about me. There's that curiosity to learn, to want more, and it's a gift and it's a curse at the same time. I see it. So I was like, okay, I need to get more. How do I validate this? I was like, this is great. How do I validate this? How do I get to, put it in a? How do I build something from scratch? I'm like, okay, I've done all this. I want to go somewhere where I can build it from scratch, so that I can show, look, I've been an architect. I've done all this, and then I've actually gone into a company and did everything, build a security program from scratch. So with that, it means I had to move.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went kind of back to the government. It's EDC here.
Export Development Canada.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a government bank that funds Canadian companies to. It supports Canadian economy by funding.
Yeah, by funding
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah.
Just to give context, just a little bit. It doesn't only fund, but also insures companies that are exporting. So it gives you some sort of a leverage there to help export. But anyways,
Right.
yes.
Yes. So script is the same. You go
Yeah.
in, you do the job, and I did it. This time I didn't last long, but there's a couple of story there. But again, it was around the time that's when COVID hit too, right? So that, I don't know if I think I'm gonna blame COVID.
Let's blame it on COVID.
Blame COVID. Anyway, I moved to a telecom or a satellite company, Telesat, which is my role again as a security architect, designing security solutions for the new satellite fleet that's been developed. Now you guys probably heard of Starlink.
Starlink, yeah. I've
Yeah,
definitely heard
so
of Starlink.
Telesat is like Starlink, but it's more for enterprise. So yeah, I was there for a good 2 years. I did learn a lot there, and I think that also validated my cross slash gift.
I think it's a gift.
Yes, so that I think it's all about learning,
Yes.
right? So because there I've learned, you meet scientists who build satellites, right? It's like
Oh, wow.
you meet engineers who fly satellites. It's like there's like a satellite design. You look at it and how they manage, let's say, heat. It's almost like I'm back to school. Like it was so awesome to go into meeting because I'm learning these whole new things.
Because you have different parties. You're not
Yes.
only computer
Security.
scientists, security information. There's also other players in the room that
Yeah.
you're learning from.
Yeah, things like
Interesting.
fuel. Like you'd think, they're using gas or something to fly, right? No, there's a whole new world of what they use to fly. Air can be used as fuel, right? So the jet, the little air jet, right? To kind of
Yes.
move the sat. So it's like there's a whole thing that I learn, but then I also realized that's also an area where the marrying of that industry and cybersecurity. At the time when I was there, it was like, yeah, there's a lot of work that's needed to be done here. I was a panel in a conference. Like it really gave me opportunities to go in because it's a new area. So I'm bringing my cybersecurity side, and I'm sitting down with these satellite experts, and I'm like, I think we can do something.
We can
now,
marry this.
yeah, I'm not saying it's not being done, right? There's a lot of folks in that space that do cybersecurity. It's just that I looked at it for myself. I'm like, yeah, I haven't from my day to day, reading. I haven't read a lot about what's been done in cybersecurity in satellite. So it got me excited to I need to learn more, find a way to contribute, find a way to do this. It was all fun, but again, there was an end date.
There was an expiry date.
There was an expiry date. It's it got to a point like this is great, I'm doing great, but I'm like I just wanna. I think it was a bit more. I think I need a balance of technology and business. So I think it got to a point where I wasn't doing a lot of technology, like my hands, writing or troubleshooting or writing scripts or doing this. So I started missing that. I'm like, this is great, looking at requirements, doing this, but I'm like, when can I get to, write or play with something, do something? So I think that started slowly to kind of, shift me into like, yeah, this is going great.
However,
that inner voice is like, yeah, this is good. It's good. It's fine. It's fine. And then you're like, is it?
Is it really?
Yeah. And then to me, how I believe is that the moment I start hearing that inner voice of mine, it's only a matter of time. Right? It's like it's only a matter of time until that manifests into something physical, like actually for you to take actions. Otherwise, the happiness and joy that you have doing work will slowly start fading away, right? There's all these things that will start to show you that it's time. That happened, the thing manifested and all that, right? And then I moved to Bell, which is apparently the tagline is Canada's biggest network.
Oh.
I think it is. Yeah, so again, I was helping with securing the 5G. That was also an awesome project. I think I saw, I was like, this is it. I think I found my steady state. I found my momentum that I wanted, right? Because it had a balance of everything. I loved working there, but I think fate had other plans for me at that time. I was doing well. I think it was at the time we went to Tanzania, came back, and some conversations started happening
Okay.
from some company, and 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 it's one of these company that I think anybody in tech or anybody in cybersecurity or software engineering, you probably had a dream of working for one of these big tech companies, right? And I've applied a couple of times, got rejected to Microsoft, AWS, Google, right? So it's like I've always wanted to go there, and to be able to have someone reaching out and say, hey, we think you'll be a good fit. I was like, wait, what?
Wait a minute.
I'm like, are you actually from this company, or
are you an imposter?
Or are you gonna tell me to pay a deposit to them to get an interview? So I read it initially and then just like, nah, it can be because you get a lot of these recruiter emails, right? Saying, hey, there's a position here, and you kindly respond, say, hey, thank you. But this one I didn't want to respond because I'm like, it actually has all the logos and all this cool stuff that says it was from Google. So it's like this looks actually legit, but why would they do that? I'm like,
why me?
Why me? I mean, I applied many times. I didn't get,
Yeah.
But I think it was just time. Everything, anyway, went through the conversations. I of course I showed interest. Went through the interview. It's very lengthy. I think you can find all online on the lengthy and the challenges of getting to Google or AWS or Microsoft. But I was like, hey, if they reached out, it means they saw something.
They saw something there.
And I'm like, I'm gonna take it 5 times in the interviews to show whatever that they saw in me. And I think with all my hopping and moving, I have never worked for my interviews that I've had for the Google interviews.
Wow.
I have literally, it was almost like I was writing an exam. That's how much I worked. Preparing, if it's like, okay, you have first interview, second interview, third, I had a couple. But hey, at the end of it, I got an offer, I got a job. So now I am with Google and with Google Cloud. So I'm the cloud security consultant, which it's a title that I have, but the reality is I'm doing the same thing I'm doing, security architecture, but it's for Google Cloud. So we are helping Google Cloud customers migrate and use Google Cloud securely. So we partner with them and go on engagements on either migration or a specific objective, right? And then we work with them, and make sure that they really make the most of Google Cloud, and they're seeing the value of the investment pretty much.
Interesting.
So yeah, that was a long...
You know what? And I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because when people see Muhuji at Google, they don't know the backstory. They don't know the hoops that you had to jump from Bank of Canada to not Bell, but to CGI, to Bell, and here you are, Google. And I have to admit, the day I saw LinkedIn, Muhuji, so-and-so, Google, I was elated. I'm not in tech, but I understand how important they call them funds for you folks in IT to be in.